Welcome to One Wrong Move, where one small decision set the whole chain in motion. Today's story starts with a missed message in a reception room in Sarajevo, and ends somewhere nobody saw coming. On a cobblestone street in Sarajevo, a black convertible has just rolled to a stop. The driver is trying to reverse. The engine dies. On the curb, 2 meters away, a 19-year-old boy has a pistol in his coat. He has already given up. He thinks the target is already dead. In the car is the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. In 37 days, every major country in Europe will be at war. By the end, 17 million people will be dead. You know this assassination. What you probably don't know is that it had already failed once that morning. The second try only worked because a driver took a wrong turn and stalled his engine. Franz Ferdinand was 50 years old, and he wasn't supposed to be the heir to anything. The throne was supposed to go to his cousin Rudolf, who shot himself in a hunting lodge in 1889. Then to his father Karl Ludwig, who drank water from the River Jordan on a pilgrimage and died of typhoid in 1896. Which left Franz Ferdinand stiff, unpopular at court, and in love with a woman the imperial court considered beneath him. Her name was Sophie Chotek. She was a countess, which wasn't nothing, but she wasn't royal, which was everything. The emperor agreed to the marriage only under terms that humiliated her. It was morganatic. Sophie couldn't sit beside her husband at state functions. Their children were barred from the succession. She couldn't ride with him in processions. There was one exception. When Franz Ferdinand was on military duty outside Vienna, Sophie could travel with him and be treated as his wife. Which is part of the reason he took her to Sarajevo. It was her one place. Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia. In 1914, Bosnia had been part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire for 6 years. Before that, it had been Ottoman for 400. Austria-Hungary had annexed it in 1908 over the furious objections of Serbia. Serbia, across the border, was the new champion of South Slav nationalism. The idea that all the Slavic peoples of the Balkans should be unified into one country, run from Belgrade, not from Vienna. Franz Ferdinand was in Sarajevo to observe army maneuvers. Sunday, June 28th, was supposed to be ceremonial. A visit to City Hall, a reception, a drive through the old town. It was also Vidovdan, St. Vitus's Day, a Serbian national holiday. The worst possible day to parade an Austro-Hungarian archduke through a Bosnian city. 6 of them were waiting. Most of the 6 were teenagers. Most of them had tuberculosis. All of them were members of Young Bosnia, a loose network of South Slav nationalists who wanted the empire out of the Balkans. The organizer on the ground was a 23-year-old former schoolteacher named Danilo Ilic. He had been recruited by a Serbian military intelligence network known as the Black Hand. 3 of his recruits had been trained in Belgrade: Gavrilo Princip, 19, Nedeljko Abrinovic, 19, Trifko Grabej, 18. They had been given 4 Browning semi-automatic pistols and 6 small grenades, smuggled back into Bosnia through a network of border guards known as the Underground. Once they reached Sarajevo, Ilic added 3 more local recruits, 6 assassins total. On the morning of June 28th, he stationed them along the Apel Quay, the broad riverfront boulevard the motorcade would drive down slowly, with the tops down, on its way to the town hall. 6 positions, 6 assassins. Franz Ferdinand would have to pass every one of them. At 10 o'clock, the motorcade rolled out of the train station. 6 cars, Franz Ferdinand and Sophie in the second car, a grave and stiffed double phaeton with the top folded back. The first assassin, Mehmed Basic, had a grenade in his pocket. He could see the Archduke clearly. He didn't take it out. The second, Hobrilovic, had a pistol and a grenade. He also saw the Archduke. He also did nothing. The third was Popovic. He later said his nerve failed him. 3 of the 6 had just let Franz Ferdinand drive past. He didn't know any of them existed. The 4th was Habrinovic. Chabrinovich was standing beside the Kumarija bridge when he saw the car. He stepped out of the crowd. He took a small cylindrical grenade from inside his jacket. Austrian grenades of that period had a percussion fuse. To arm one, you struck the cap against something hard. There was a 10-second delay. Chabrinovich struck his grenade against a lamp-post and threw it at the Archduke's car. Franz Ferdinand's driver, a man named Leopold Loka, saw it coming and pushed the accelerator. The grenade struck the folded-back canvas roof, bounced off and rolled into the street. It detonated under the wheels of the third car. 16 to 20 people were wounded. Lieutenant Colonel Marizzi, the chief adjutant to the military governor, was hit in the head. In the second car, Franz Ferdinand was unhurt. Sophie was unhurt. The assassination had just failed. Chabrinovich knew he had seconds. He put a small glass vial to his lips and swallowed the cyanide the Belgrade operatives had given him. Then he jumped over the bridge railing into the Miljacka River below. The cyanide was old. Instead of killing him, it made him vomit. The Miljacka in June runs through a deep concrete channel. That morning the water was about 4 inches deep. Chabrinovich landed in the 4 inches of water and was immediately pulled out. The crowd beat him. The police took him into custody alive. If this is the first time you're hearing Franz Ferdinand survived an earlier attempt that morning, subscribe. This isn't yet the wrong move. The motorcade drove on to the town hall at high speed. Franz Ferdinand and Sophie were escorted inside. The mayor of Sarajevo was already at the microphone with his prepared welcome speech. Franz Ferdinand cut him off. He was shaking with rage, he said, out loud in front of the assembled dignitaries. "Mr. Mayor, I came here on a visit, and I am greeted with bombs. It is outrageous." There was a long silence. Then Franz Ferdinand composed himself and told the mayor to continue. The speech was read out. The Archduke gave his own short reply. He thanked the people of Sarajevo and didn't mention the grenade a second time. The reception was over. Now somebody had to decide what to do next. The man in charge of that decision was General Oskar Potiorek, the military governor of Bosnia. The same man whose chief adjutant was now in the hospital with a head wound. Potiorek met with the Archduke in a small reception room. The museum visit was scrapped, but Franz Ferdinand added something. He wanted to visit Marizzi in the hospital, see the wounded man. Sophie was supposed to split off at this point to a separate ladies' reception. She refused. She said if there was any chance of more attacks, she wasn't going to be anywhere except beside him. Potiorek agreed. A new route was decided verbally in that reception room, straight down the Appel Quay. Don't turn into the city. Go directly to the hospital. The meeting broke up. Everyone went back outside. And somewhere between the reception room and the curb, the new route was never communicated to the drivers. Historians have argued about this for 100 years. Some say no aide was assigned to carry the message. Some say the lead driver was told, but the second driver wasn't. Some say Potiorek himself assumed somebody else would handle it. What isn't in dispute is the result. Leopold Loka, sitting behind the wheel of Franz Ferdinand's car, had no idea the route had changed. Gavrilo Princip had heard the grenade go off. He was standing at his assigned position further along the Appel Quay. He heard the explosion. He heard the screaming. He assumed, like most of the other boys, that the Archduke was already dead. His part in the history of the 20th century was, as far as he knew, already over. He left his position. He walked down the quay a short way and turned right onto Franz Joseph Street. He stopped in front of a small delicatessen on the corner, owned by a man named Moritz Schiller. Princip was 19, small, tubercular. He had a loaded pistol in his coat pocket, and he didn't know what to do with it anymore. So he stood on the curb outside Schiller's delicatessen, not hiding, not waiting for anything, just standing there because he was 19 and he had no plan for what came after. Back at the town hall, the motorcade was ready to leave. Franz Ferdinand and Sophie in their car, Potiorek in the front seat, Count Herak on the left running board, serving as a human shield, Loka at the wheel. The lead car pulled away. Laka followed. They drove back out along the Appel Quay, the river on their right, tall buildings on their left, the corner of Franz Joseph Street ahead. The lead car, not told about the new route, reached the corner and turned right into the old city, the way it had been told to go that morning. Lochka followed. In the front seat, Potiorek sat up and said, loudly, "This is the wrong way. We are supposed to take the Appel Quay." Lochka braked. The car rolled to a stop on Franz Joseph Street, about 5 meters past the corner, beside the sidewalk, beside a small delicatessen. He pushed in the clutch. He tried to shift into reverse. The engine died. A 1910 touring car didn't have an electric starter. Restarting it meant cranking the engine by hand at the front. In the meantime, Franz Ferdinand and Sophie were sitting in the back of an open convertible on a city street, not moving. 2 meters away on the curb, a boy who had already given up looked up and saw the target he wasn't expecting to see. Princip pulled the pistol out of his coat pocket. He took a step forward. He was now close enough to touch the car if he had reached out. He pointed the Browning and pulled the trigger twice. The first bullet passed through the right side door panel and struck Sophie in the abdomen. She didn't scream. She slumped forward against her husband's chest. The second bullet struck Franz Ferdinand in the right side of the neck. It severed his jugular vein and came to rest in his spine. He didn't fall. He was a large man in a tightly buttoned uniform jacket, and the jacket held him upright. Princip turned the pistol toward his own head. 2 men from the crowd grabbed his arm and wrestled him to the ground before he could do it. Count Harrach was leaning over Franz Ferdinand, trying to keep his head upright. Blood was coming out of the Archduke's mouth. Harrach asked him if he was in pain. Franz Ferdinand didn't answer the question about pain. He looked at his wife, slumped against him, and he said, "Sophie, Sophie, don't die. Live for our children." Those were the last words anybody ever recorded him saying. Lochka had the car running again. He drove at full speed to the governor's residence. By the time they arrived, Sophie was already dead. Franz Ferdinand died a few minutes later. It was about 11:30 in the morning. The assassination is done. Now comes the part where a missed message kills 17 million people. Subscribe before the cascade starts. In Vienna, the reaction was surprisingly muted. Franz Ferdinand hadn't been a popular figure. But unpopular or not, he had been the heir. And his killing had been done by Bosnian Serbs with weapons supplied from Belgrade. That was a pretext. On July 5th, Germany issued what historians call the blank check. Berlin told Vienna that Germany would support whatever action Austria-Hungary chose to take against Serbia. On July 23rd, Austria-Hungary delivered a 10-point ultimatum to Serbia. The terms were designed to be rejected. Serbia accepted 9 of the 10. On July 28th, 1 month to the day after the wrong turn, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Russia mobilized. Germany declared war on Russia, then on France, then invaded Belgium. Britain declared war on Germany. In 37 days, every major power in Europe was at war with every other major power in Europe. 4 years later, about 17 million people were dead. Leopold Lochka lived. He was 28 on the morning of the assassination. Czech. A professional chauffeur employed by Count Harrach, the owner of the car. He had never worked for the Austro-Hungarian military before. After the war, he went home to the Czech countryside. The Harrach family left him a small inn near Brno. He ran it for the rest of his life. People who knew him said he refused to talk about June 28th. Not to journalists, not to historians, not even to his family. He died of a stroke in 1926. He was 41. He had survived the wrong turn by exactly 12 years. Gavrilo Princip was 19 on the morning of the assassination. Austro-Hungarian law set the age for capital punishment at 20. He was, by a legal technicality, too young to hang. He was tried in Sarajevo in October of 1914 and sentenced to the maximum the law allowed, 20 years of hard labor. He was sent to Terezin Fortress and kept in solitary confinement. The tuberculosis in his lungs spread to the bones of his right arm. The arm had to be amputated. He died on April 28, 1918, 23 years old. The war had about 6 months left to run. Princip didn't live long enough to find out whether the thing he'd done had worked, or what it had cost, or who had paid for it. The car survived. A Graf-and-Stift double phaeton, dark body, black leather seats, a hole still visible in the right rear door where Princip's first bullet passed through. It sits in the Museum of Military History in Vienna, behind glass, in a room with low light. It still carries its original license plate, a 1118. After the war, people began reading that plate as a date, a 4 armistice, 11/11/18, the day the war ended. Mehmed Basic froze, Hobrilovich froze, Popovich froze, Abrinovich threw his grenade and it bounced off the roof of the car. Princip gave up and walked away. The Archduke should have survived the morning. He gave a speech. He complained about the bombs. He decided to visit a wounded man in the hospital. His wife insisted on coming with him. And somewhere between a reception room and the curb, a message about a new route was never passed. It never reached the Czech driver who didn't know the city. He turned right. He tried to reverse. The engine died. 20 seconds, 2 meters, 2 bullets, 37 days, 17 million dead. 1 wrong move. That was how one wrong turn rewrote the 20th century. One wrong move. If this one got you, hit subscribe. One wrong move drops a new one twice a week, and the next one is worse.